Be with me this day, Mother and Father. Help me to truly have eyes to see those who are hurting. Help me to be a minister of your love and goodness to them this day.
Welcome to the In Her Image podcast, where we seek and celebrate Mother God through scriptures, scholarship, the arts, and everyday life. This is your host, Jessica Woodbury, and today I am excited to welcome back Rebecca Young, who joined us a number of months ago, back in September, I believe it was, in episode 133, and she helped with the Heavenly Parents Book of Mormon, an inclusive reading of the Book of Mormon. So Rebecca is a good friend of mine, and we have known each other for a few years now. And I'm really excited. In that last episode, she shared about the wonderful project that she did last year with the help of her sister and Aspen Moore. But I wanted to be able to have this opportunity to hear more of her story, more of her insights. And so welcome to the podcast. Welcome back, Rebecca.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here again.
So, Rebecca, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us a little bit about who you are, what you love to do, and then you can include in that as well. You have done a few different things around this topic, but you can share more than just what you've done around this topic about what makes you who you are.
Right. Well, the great majority of my adult life, I have been a mother to my 5 kids, and that was always and still continues to be hugely important to me. My baby just turned 18 last week and is about to graduate high school. So all of our kids are adults now, and I am now a junior high choir teacher, and I love that. It's such a rewarding thing to be involved in. And when I'm not at work, I love working out and being out in nature. Especially paddleboarding is my favorite. So I miss that during the winter months. And then I love to read and especially love to be with other women to create spaces where we gather or I have lunch with friends or get groups together to do things like that. I feel like that's a really important part of my gifts and personality.
Yeah, you really do have that gift. Rebecca is a gatherer, and she has created women's gathering groups that meet regularly. And I just love seeing how it's another example of how you see people create the things that they need, and it ends up blessing so many other lives as well. So I know you also have your Instagram account. So some people may know you from that. Would you like to share what that is? Yeah.
Sure. That is our.heavenly.parents. And I've done that almost 5 years. Sometime in 2020 is when I started that.
Yeah. So to get started, I want to go back to kind of the beginning for you around Heavenly Mother. Have you always known about Heavenly Mother, and what were the messages that were given to you about her as you were growing up?
Yeah, I definitely remember being told that there was a Heavenly Mother. I grew up very much in the church. I'm the middle of 7 children, 5 girls and 2 boys. And I do have memories of my mom telling us we have a Heavenly Mother, but it was always for sure we don't really talk about her. Heavenly Father is protecting her, and he doesn't want people to disrespect her like he is disrespected. But I definitely remember knowing that she was there. And I wrote a poem one time about her being in my back pocket. I was fine with that little treasure being with me. And I didn't think a ton about it. But I do remember probably 15, 20 years ago now, I remember being at a fun little cabin sleepover weekend with some friends. And I remember specifically that I brought up Heavenly Mother and asked what people thought about her and if anybody felt like they ever felt her or connected with her. And that was just kind of, I don't remember what was going on at that time, but I remember asking my friends, and some of them said they did feel her and expressed different ways. And I was kind of I didn't really at that point, I think, give myself permission to just really, really seek her. But I feel like that showed that she was kind of coming more to the forefront. And I was starting to ask more questions about why we don't talk about her and how we can feel her presence, because I think it was starting to make sense to me more wait, if this is a mother, then she's got to be involved. There's got to be something we're missing here.
Yeah. So then coming from that background, and, you were sort of getting nudges, it sounds like, that she was on your mind in some way, but maybe still not thinking deeply about it or really doing anything about it. So then how did the journey really begin for you? Were there pivotal moments or experiences that led you to her and to seek her more fully? Because I know how important she is to you in your life now, and you've done so much work around this.
Yeah. So in thinking about this, there is a specific pivotal moment, and I'll share that in just one second, but it does come to mind that an important thing that happened before this in the previous probably 5 to 7 years was a lot of change in my family, including, first of all, my husband stepping away from the church, and then 2 children coming out as gay and also leaving the church. And I think those 5 to 7 years, it created a lot of change in me. And one of the important changes that I think maybe opened the door for Heavenly Mother to come more into my life was that there became more distance between me and the institutionalized church. And also more distance between me and my ward members as far as how I did or didn't fit in with them. So I think that is kind of the backdrop for me to be able to be open to this experience that I did have. So in 2019, my very best friend, Elisa, was killed in a car crash at the end, right before Christmas in 2019. And there is nothing that could have been more devastating, maybe only losing my spouse or a child, but it was completely devastating. And I remember making it through the holidays because it's the holidays and there's so much going on. Like I went out to her funeral and then came home basically on Christmas Eve. And my adult daughters were here and we did Christmas and it was all ready. And then we left immediately to go visit extended family in California. And then I had all these nieces and nephews and just all that family around me. And that's kind of how I got through the holidays. And then I came back and real life started up again and my job started up again. And I really felt like a zombie, like I was just moving through life completely detached. And I would come home from work every day and I would just sit on the couch or lay on the couch and not do anything, just cry or just stare off. And a couple weeks into January, I was here on my couch right here where I'm at right now. And I was just devastated, just really sad and lonely and hurting. And I really very clearly, it wasn't audible, but you know how you hear a voice and it's just inside your head. And the voice just said, she's with the mother now. And accompanying those words was a complete feeling of peace. And it was the first peace that I had felt since she had died nearly a month earlier. And it just felt really connecting. Like in the weeks that followed, I thought of Elisa with Heavenly Mother. And I feel specifically that Heavenly Mother felt closer to me, more real to me, because someone that I knew nearly as well as I knew myself was with her. And it just felt like this direct connection.
Yeah, that's so interesting because you just think about how often the divine can feel so ungraspable. It's mysterious. It's hard to understand or feel really connected to because it's not something that we can see and touch. And it kind of reminds me of, and I say this in a respectful way, the way that like Catholic saints, they have these saints that almost are like a bridge to the divine.
Like how Mary feels more close to them and they'll
Yeah.
pray to the Mary or to a saint. Yeah.
Because it's more understandable. And I think that there's actually something really human and beautiful about that because it can be so hard to fully understand and connect with this thing that we can't touch and see. And so that's so beautiful to just think about the way that seeing your friend who you love and know so personally maybe helped you to be able to see her in such a more real way, the mother, by envisioning her next to her, because that was the message that you were given that gave you that peace. I'm so sorry for your loss. And I know what a huge impact that loss has had in your life. And was there any part of you that was curious, that just was surprised to hear that? Because, normally we think about Jesus or the Father when we talk
Yeah,
about those going on to the next life. And so it's interesting that that was what was said to you.
right. So it was kind of like of course, of course. And like the idea that she was about her mother's work. That also came as I thought more about it. That other idea came with it. Elisa was a Stake Relief Society president at the time of her death, and her stake president was super forward thinking. He was giving all of his bishops the book Women at Church. He
Oh,
was having her,
amazing.
yeah, I want to clone him. So she was doing this type of work. And actually, I mean, we talked about heavenly parents, we had talked about it. But like I said, I wasn't like fully on this journey yet. It wasn't until her death that really brought me to the beginning of the path that I've been on now. But when I went to her house on her funeral weekend, she had written quotes up on her mirrors and on her windows with like dry erase markers. And so many of them said heavenly parents. It was just really interesting to see that she, in her work of like speaking up for women in the church, those quotes were really speaking to her also. And we shared a lot about that. We also were both doing the Inkling study that Emily Freeman did at the time. And it was studying that spiritual treasures talk by President Nelson that talked about women learning about their priesthood power. And I found her notes from that. And so I just felt really natural in a way that, like, of course, she is with our mother and she's continuing this work on the other side.
That's so beautiful. So you said that you had kind of been thinking about this a little bit, and then you had that experience. And was it pretty immediate that you started to think a lot more about it, that it became much more important to you? Or was that a process over time? And what did that look like?
Well, that experience happened in about mid-January. And then if you think about January 2020, what happened is just 2 months later, everything shuts down. And I was literally like barely surviving by reaching out to friends and getting together and having time with other girlfriends to try to fill this void that had been left in my life, because Elisa and I talked basically every day. And so then the pandemic shuts everything down. And I had ended up having some beautiful experiences during those months of the shutdown, because a lot of women hosted online groups at the time. And I remember a specific one that was also pivotal was one led by Bergen Hyde. At the time, it was called Womb Circle. And she led an online meditation group where we basically went into our heart space and invited the divine feminine into our heart space. And in that meditation, Elisa walked in the door first, and then she was followed by Heavenly Mother. So that was another really beautiful experience of connection. And so later in the year, I remember specifically, I was sitting in a pew at church, I want to say October, November of 2020. And I was inspired by your other co-host, Jess Burdett, and her account, her scriptures. And because on her account, I'd started seeing these like scripture verses that were flipped that had woman or she and her. And I remember having that aha moment sitting there in church. It was probably like the sacrament prayer, God, the eternal Father. And I just thought, I just want to change all of it. I want to change all of the language. I want it to include Heavenly Mother. And the Spirit just said, like, start an Instagram account. And that very day, I started it and just started posting, flipping quotes and flipping scriptures, and not really flipping, but just adding Heavenly Mother in. And that kind of blossomed. And then very quickly, thanks to that Instagram account, I met you. And I met about 20 other amazing women. And it just became this blossoming of friendship and connection in my life over the next probably year in 2021. And it's just become such a blessing.
I don't know if you could tell that my eyes were getting all teary when you were sharing that experience with the meditation. and having Elisa come first and then bringing the Divine Mother. And it just made me think about how this friend who loves you so much and who knew how much you loved her and needed her, and then she was gone, and she knew how hard that would be for you. And so it was like, it seems like it was this gift that she was giving you, saying, I know I can't be physically with you anymore, and sending you all these Marco Polos and messages and things every day. And something that I know that can help you get through living life without me beside you in person is knowing our mom more, our mother.
Yes. Wow. That was really beautiful, Jessica. Yes, that's how I see it looking back over the last 5 years. I'm sure I've said it before, like nothing is ever going to replace the friendship I had with Elisa, but it has been such a beautiful silver lining to connect with the amazing women that have come into my life from that journey.
Yeah. Including Heavenly Mother, right? In a much deeper level.
Much deeper.
So, that was kind of a gift that Elisa gave you. It seems like this gift of Heavenly Mother to help you get through life without her. What other gifts do you feel like you've received from Elisa, or from now this gift of awakening and openness and greater closeness to the Divine Mother?
I think it's come with a lot of intuitive knowing about like what my gifts are and how I'm meant to use them. And I think I'm more likely to feel really secure in that now. And part of that might be getting older too, right? In this whole journey, I've been in my 40s and I'm turning 50 this year. So I think part of that is a gift of growing older also. But just, I think, more solid connection to myself, to my feminine intuition, and to my direct connection to God, my heavenly parents. There's been a lot of blessings that have come. For instance, one of the women that we met in that initial gathering of Instagram account creators, she eventually shared with all of us the Divine Feminine New Testament. And it was just such a wellspring of joy and like comfort reading that book. It makes me actually think of President Monson, like the balm of Gilead. Like it just felt like a balm. He used to always say that phrase. It just felt like this soothing thing to read the scriptures and have her in there. And that is what directly led to the project with my sister Carol and Aspen Moore, because we read that of the New Testament and it just lit a fire in us to do that with the Book of Mormon. And that New Testament has the spelling of Godde that I know we talked about in that podcast. And that spelling for me personally has become so important and such a gift that I can use the word God. And in my mind, it's spelled in that more expansive, broadened way. And it just like completely connects me to both of them at the same time. It's allowed me to reclaim some of those things that maybe became harder when I started to see how she was left out.
Yeah, some of those words and terms that when they're said, you can envision in your mind being the Godde, God being Godde. And explain again, in case someone hasn't listened to that episode recently and isn't as familiar with what that comes from and what it signifies. Can you share that?
Yes. So that comes from a book called The Divine Feminine New Testament, and it was done by the Christian Godde, Godde, or it can be said Godde, God Project. And they explained that they chose that as an in-between of God and Goddess, and also just to make it like it's God with a feminine ending, just to kind of open up that word that is so masculine because it's been used for only a male God for so many years, and just to kind of like disrupt that connection.
Yeah. So before, you mentioned a little bit the expanded community that you were able to gain through this. Do you feel like that was another gift that you were given, maybe through Elisa as well, or through the Divine Mother? And how has that worked for you? How have you been able to find these communities of women around this topic that have been important in your life?
Yeah, I think you're right. I do believe it's a gift from both of them. It's funny because I've become less active on my Instagram account because I got real connections like with people, and we have so many beautiful people now in this circle, and I feel like we just keep meeting new people, right? And so we've been able to do a few retreats together, and different women each year have kind of taken the lead on that and say, we're going to get together if anyone's interested. And then it never fails. Like every year there's new people, that it's not always all the same people. And then I really just started feeling like I was so hungry for the type of connection I wished that I could have at church. And it was early 2024 that I was having breakfast with a friend. And I just said, I really want something. I feel like if I just had a women's group, like if we got together like once a month, I might be able to like endure all the other Sundays at church. And so I ended up reaching out to you and to another friend of ours here in Utah County and you're up in Salt Lake County. And we've been able to start that group. And I wish that everybody in no matter where they live could create this type of community, because it has definitely blessed me. And then every time we do it, I feel like I see the blessing for all these other women and the sweet connection that is coming for each of them in different ways with different people. And it just feels like the mother is present every single time we're together.
Mm-hmm.
So what I would say to anyone listening, I think sometimes we hear these things and we're like, oh, I wish I could have that. I wish someone would invite me to something like that, right? We all do that. But I would just encourage anyone listening, if you feel the mother saying, like giving you a little nudge, start small. It doesn't have to be a big group. I just called a couple friends and then we all reached out to a few people that we each knew, and it hasn't like exploded. It's somewhere between 10 to 18 people each time we do it. And I just trust that it's going to find whoever needs it. I don't worry about keeping it exclusive. If someone says, I have a friend that might really love this, I say, yes, invite them. My husband years ago, he started a little meditation group with one friend of his and that friend's son. And there were 3 of them. And it now has been going for, I don't even know how many years, probably over 10 years. And they have like 80 to 100 people showing up every single week. So just start small. Sometimes we just think it has to be so big. It has to be so formal. It has to, like, I don't have a big enough house for this kind of thing. It doesn't matter. If you feel called and if you feel like that's something that you are longing for in your life, then just reach out to a couple people and try it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's hard because I also hear from a lot of people who say how, I wish I lived in Utah or something where all these things are happening. And I think it's so beautiful how now with the internet, geography doesn't have to inhibit us anymore. And so if you are somewhere where there aren't a lot of people that you can meet in person with, you can reach out to people that you meet even online, and you can start things. You can start Marco Polo group. I'm a part of a Zoom interdenominational Bible study group. And so you can do these sorts of things. You can be able to build connections without having that limit. And we're so blessed to live at a time where that geography doesn't have to bind us and keep us isolated. And so I feel passionate about that as well. I feel like I've said that on here a number of times as well. If there's something that you're craving, maybe it's out there and you can join it. And if not, then create what it is that you crave. And there's so much power in that. And then you're able to create exactly what it is that you need and that your soul is craving. So you've shared a few experiences already. of feeling the Divine Mother or being introduced to the Divine Mother. Are there any other experiences like that you would be willing to share?
Yeah. There was definitely that one time when I felt like I heard that voice that was more feminine and brought her to the forefront. I think that for me, it comes much more that I now intentionally connect with the mother and the father together, just in my day-to-day life. My prayer life has really changed. I almost never kneel down and say the type of prayers that we were all taught, as primary children. It's more often just like a crying out of my heart, like, Mother, Father, please be with them, help them right now. And so it's so much that intentional connecting with both of them. Also, looking back, I find it interesting because I no longer interpret all of my spiritual experiences and attribute them to just the Father. Looking back, I have some very specific experiences where, again, I heard a voice, and because of just my mindset and the framework I had around God, it was like God, the Father, is speaking to me. And now there's some of those messages specifically where I'm like, oh, I'm pretty sure that was Mom. She is the one who would have said that and spoken right to my heart and given me that comfort when I really needed it. I do feel that I connect more with her when I lean into that intuition, when I'm in places of not knowing and letting her guide me more intuitively, instead of the more rational ways that I think I used to connect with the divine masculine. I feel pretty content in either connecting with them both or maybe just doing a little more seeking of the divine feminine because she's been absent in my life for the first 40 years. So I'm going to kind of figure that out now.
Well, so you talk about maybe seeking that connection a little bit more now because of that absence in the past. So what ways have you found to connect with her, to be able to continue fostering that relationship in a deeper way?
This will come as no surprise to anybody, least of all you. Nature is number one for me. I just find it so easy to feel the love and nurturing and care of a mother out in Mother Earth. So in 2020, right during when the pandemic, it was really the worst year of my life. And right when the pandemic hit, I ended up having horrible back issues, just all of a sudden. I'm sure it was more somatic issues, my body was storing things and really acting out because of the pain that I was in, probably emotionally. But I couldn't even do any of the exercise that I normally do. But I discovered that I could cycle. So I ended up getting a road bike. And I live right by the countryside in Spanish Fork, Utah. And in those long days where we were just all locked inside with each other and we couldn't do any of our normal things, I would get on that bike and I would just go out into the countryside. And once I went under the freeway right near our house, I have the most beautiful view of Mount Timpanogos. And for me at that time especially, she just came to represent the mother. For those of you who aren't familiar, in Utah Valley, there's a mountain called Mount Timpanogos, and the top of it has a silhouette of a woman laying down. And I've always loved it. I've always thought it was so beautiful. But at this time in my life, it just became this physical representation of the mother watching over this whole valley, And maybe I'm crazy, but I would go out there and it was almost like a ritual. I would just go out there and I'd pull off to the side of this little country road and just look north and take in the mountain and just pray for connection and for comfort and for more understanding of how to move through this crazy world that we were all experiencing.
And do you feel like you found that there then?
Oh, it was so peaceful. And it was some of the only peaceful moments in those days that were so unsure. And I'm a teacher, so we just didn't know if we were going back to school, and we didn't end up going back at all. And then even as the summer wore on, I didn't even know if I would have a job because choir specifically was a super spreader activity. So my life became really unsure. And I had literally just started teaching. So it felt wait, what? I just barely got this job and now I might not be able to do it. And there's just a lot of uncertainty in that time out in nature, connecting with that beautiful mountain and kind of asking for my mother's support. It just made all the difference.
It's so beautiful. And I love that mountain as well. And I love how Sarah Pixton, who helped start this podcast as well, I know that that mountain was also really important to her when she was seeking the mother and would go for walks and look at that mountain and think about the mother.
Absolutely. I also connect with her in prayer. And I pray both to my mother and my father now, and it honestly feels so natural to me. And I wanted to share a part of what our Bible dictionary says under the topic of prayer. It says, as soon as we learn the true relationship in which we stand toward God, namely God is our Father and we are his children, then at once prayer becomes natural and instinctive on our part. And I just have to say, I totally agree, because I feel like I have come to learn the true relationship in which I stand with God, Godde, that they are my parents and that I am their child. And so my prayers to them are completely natural and instinctive.
Yeah, of course, if you have parents, then you want to converse with them. You want to be able to connect with them. And that is the way in which we've been taught that we can talk to God.
God, exactly.
Yeah. So what has been hard about the journey for you?
The hardest part is having a full-throated testimony of the mother has put me in a place of believing in full equality and full partnership in every way between our mother and father in their roles right now. And I also believe in full partnership in between man and woman in our roles on this earth. It just makes sense to me that we should pattern our relationships after theirs. And so it has become much harder to be in a patriarchal institution, to live my day-to-day life, including her, speaking about her, talking on Marco Polo with all of our friends that we call divine feminists. And that's just so a part of the fabric of my daily life. And then to go to church and sometimes hear her completely left out is probably the hardest thing. I am lucky. I have a bishop that gets up, and if he's up there, he will say Heavenly Parents. At some point, he will say Heavenly Parents in his remarks. And he also makes an effort to say sisters and brothers instead of brothers and sisters. And there's a lot of really good things. I have some friends in my ward that I have solidarity with, but that does become more difficult. And at this point, the more you speak up about Heavenly Mother in a church setting, the more distance there is between me and the general membership. But I really feel called to do that. And so even though it's hard, I show up every Sunday and I make those comments and I try to include her. And honestly, I feel like one of the things that mother and father have asked me to do is to speak up for other people that might not feel like they're included in our community. I myself, being from now a mixed faith marriage, I've had to be really brave and speak up about different things that are said in church that are hurtful, and trying to gently point out, like, when we say harsh things about people who have left the church, you're talking about people that I love. Or even like with LGBTQ issues, I try to speak up because everyone knows that I have 2 daughters. And so I try to speak up for, sisters who are single, or people who might be divorced, or people in my situation where a spouse has left the church, or people with gay children, or people who have had children leave the church. All of these things I'm experiencing firsthand. And I feel like I make a difference when I am brave and authentic, and I just share from my heart and try to give a broader perspective. And I generally have, at least one person come up and thank me. There's probably a few people who want to unthank me and wish I weren't there, maybe. I don't know. But I have those times where I come home, and even though it might have been hard, I do feel like I'm still where my heavenly parents want me to be.
Mm-hmm. And, you say that that's hard to engage in the institution more because of how much you want and believe in true equality. And it seems like maybe using your voice helps you. Is that right? Like, does using your voice sometimes help you to navigate that, help it to not hurt as much? Are there things that you found that help you because you have felt called to still be there and to still be present in the institution? What tools help you to keep doing that, even when sometimes it's hurtful and even when you see in a different way the hurtful aspects of it too?
I think being really secure in my connection to Heavenly Father and Heavenly Mother and my brother Jesus, like the life that he lived, I feel pretty confident in showing up in the church in the way that I feel like Jesus showed up in his life, with the lepers, with the woman taken in adultery, with the Pharisees, with all of those situations, the woman at the well. I try as much as I can in my very flawed human way to show up with that same idea. And I think that those are some of the gifts of my personal journey. One more thing I didn't say is that I am still in the ward where my husband was the bishop before he left the church. And that has been kind of a blessing and a curse, but kind of a blessing. I've had to be more brave. I think if we had moved and none of these people knew our history, I don't think I would feel maybe the same feeling of being under a spotlight or being watched that I have felt the last 12 years since he stepped away. But it's been maybe a growing process for both my ward and for me, as I just kept coming and I kept being myself and I kept growing into that trust in the gifts that my specific journey had given me.
Yeah. So I remember in a conversation that we had one time, you sharing about something that you would read every Sunday morning before church to just kind of get you in that mindset that you just talked about trying to show up in a Christ-like way. And I remember thinking it was so beautiful and thinking how I wanted a copy of it because I wanted to do the same thing. So would you be willing to share that with us on here? Because it may be helpful to others as well.
Absolutely. You have a very good memory because it has been a while since we talked about that. So this is something that I wrote and I did as a ritual. I haven't been doing it for a while, but I did as a ritual, like when it was more particularly hard to be at church in the earlier part of this journey. So here's what I had written. Father and Mother of my spirit, bless me this day that I may be emptied of expectation and intolerance. Help me to remember why I am choosing to go to church, to participate with a faith community, to take the sacrament of Christ's body and blood, to lift and support individual sisters, and to hold space for all stages. Bless me this day that I might remember in my body and mind how it felt to be in each stage. Open my heart that I may see myself in every sister and brother that shares today. Give me the gift of thy love, pure charity, toward those who are the most different from me, especially those whose views I see as harmful. Help my heart and mind to be open to a deeper understanding of their perspectives. And then I have this in bold because it was probably the most important line to me. Grant me this day a peaceful and calm assurance of my freedom from patriarchy. Help me to see the patriarchy clearly for what it is, utter nonsense. That is straight from Bethany Brady Spalding.
Oh, I love that.
Utter nonsense. A Gordian knot that simply crumbles upon true inspection. Help me to be free from anger, which is really a symptom of fear. I am no longer afraid. In God, my heavenly parents, do I trust. I will not be afraid. Be with me this day, Mother and Father. Help me to truly have eyes to see those who are hurting. Help me to be a minister of your love and goodness to them this day. Amen.
Wow. Rebecca, that is so powerful. I felt like it must have taken so much maturity and love and a desire to be like Christ and like your divine parents, to get to a place where you could express so much love and curiosity for the people that you even feel hurt by. I mean, you talk in there about let me better understand the people and their perspectives whose words hurt me. You said it in better words, but that concept. And I truly think I'm going to have to type that up and put it on my desk to read before.
Well, to be clear,
deciding.
That is my highest aspiration, right? That is, and that's why you repeat it over and over, to try to make like one more word of it stick in your actions that day. That is like something to shoot for. And I think it's valuable to remind myself of the places I've been and the things I probably said that were hurtful 100% back then.
Yeah, I mean, that it just is so full of so much humility and love and curiosity. And if we could show up in all of our spaces that way, can you imagine?
Right.
I mean, we would be so much more healed, and our space and the spaces that we are part of could be so much more healed. So what has brought you joy in this journey? I know you've kind of shared some of it already, but, as a recap perhaps, or if there are other thoughts that you have.
I think that my journey, I feel like it has taught me a lot about the connection between joy and sorrow, and that we generally don't get one without the other. And so many of the joys that have come from this journey, as I already spoke about, came out of one of the greatest losses of my entire life. And I didn't make up this term, but it's like collateral beauty instead of collateral damage, right? It's this beauty that just comes into our lives out of things that we don't choose. In the pandemic, when I was really flailing for comfort and connection, friendship, I remember one time my husband was watching the National Cathedral broadcast, which is an Episcopal church. And that's the church that my husband now goes to. And the sermon that day was by Reverend Marianne Budde, and she just became part of the national news with the National Prayer Breakfast and her sermon on that day. But her sermon on this day back in 2020 felt like a message written just for me. In her sermon, she prayed, "May God give you the particular grace that you need to rise to whatever is being asked of you now. I pray that you might know the transformative grace that comes whenever you must accept what you cannot change, and allow yourself to feel grief whenever you must surrender whatever or whomever is being taken from you. Accepting what we do not choose is holy work." And I think especially that last line really hits me, because don't we all have a lot of life that we just wouldn't have chosen? And my journey, like I said, started with my husband stepping away from the church and starting to attend the Episcopalian church, and then 2 children coming out as gay, and then losing my best friend to death. And all of those things have been things that I would not have wanted to accept. But they've all of them become such gifts in my life, and places where in each of those realms, I feel like my heavenly parents have been able to use me to spread their love and spread their goodness and light into.
So beautiful. How they can alchemize the difficult things in life into gold.
Absolutely.
So how have you felt personally called to cherish the Divine Mother?
I just feel really called to include her, to speak up about her, to say her name, to make it clear that I believe she is God. She is not some silent backseat partner, and she is not weak, and she doesn't need to be protected. She is fierce. She has so much to teach her daughters, right? Just as any of us who have a father and a mother, we've learned beautiful things from each of them and had experiences with each of our parents that has shaped us as who we are. And the same is so logically true of our Heavenly Mother and Heavenly Father. I'm so grateful to have had the experience that brought her to me and that really planted in my heart this just deep and firm testimony of her equality with the Father and of woman's equality with men in the eyes of God, our heavenly parents.
Yeah.
Godde.
Yes, totally. And so how has the Divine Mother changed you? That is the question that we ask at the end of just about every episode.
I think she's made me even more fierce, which maybe is a little scary because I've always been a little outspoken. I think that coming to know Heavenly Mother has grown my discernment in life. And I am more able to discern personal truth, my personal beliefs, my personal mission. I try to connect with her more to discern, like at church, like, is it time for me to say something? Is this what I'm supposed to do? That intuitive knowing, I have felt more connection deeper into myself. That's a difference that I feel like Heavenly Father to me maybe still feels a little more external, a little more on the logical, like thinking side. And that is how I connect with him. And I do feel a connection to him still and to my brother Jesus. But my connection to my mother feels very internal. Like it makes me think of, I was just reading the other day about how a baby's cells stay in their mother. And it just makes me think of that like reciprocity, that there's something woven together that is woven in me. And that my connection with her is more internal and deep and intuitive.
And it seems like from what you've said that that's helped you to trust that intuition that you have in perhaps a deeper way as well.
Absolutely.
So is there anything else that you want to share with us before you go?
I would just want to agree with something that MacArthur Krishna always says, is that like we should be joyfully celebrating our mother. And sometimes I get caught in the hard and in that dissonance that I have at church. But when I go to that intuitive, deep connection with her and I share from that space, it is joyful. And there's always a peace that accompanies that.
That's beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Rebecca, for joining us. Thank you for sharing even more about your personal story and for sharing those beautiful, sacred experiences that you shared with us. I know that they are personal and I know that they bring up a lot of deep feelings and love and sorrow and joy and all the things. And I'm so grateful that you were willing to share that here with us. So thank you for that. And like I said, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be printing off your Sunday morning ritual. And I might not be the only one. Anyone who's listening, know that you can get the transcript on Apple Podcasts. It automatically does it. So it may not be 100% correct, but copy and paste away and do it yourselves.
And then make it your own.
Yeah, totally.
Make it your own. Thank you so much, Jessica.
Thank you so much for all that you are doing and for the example that you are, again, of being a voice, of continuing to stand up and bear witness of the mother and of moving forth in the world, creating what you need and blessing others because of it. Well, I'm so grateful that you are my friend and someone that I can continue to learn from as well.
Same to you.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoy this podcast, we invite you to come on over to patreon.com/inherimagepodcast for more content and community. You will have opportunities to participate in Q&A sessions, quarterly book clubs, access to a Marco Polo or Facebook group chat with our hosts, and the insider scoop on events, meetups, and retreats. We're so excited to meet you. And of course, tune in next Sunday for another inspiring episode.